I got a chance to see your upcoming short, 10 Times Better, about George Lee. Does this relate to your ongoing larger project Beyond Yellowface, which is about dancing and overcoming racial stereotypes in the dancing world? Because George is a great figure. You know, he's just a really attractive personality, and boy, can he jump.
I know.
Unbelievable. But if you could talk about that, is, you know, that larger thing that you're doing about dancing and being Asian and in general. Yeah. And also, you know, George is an example. Does he grow out of that larger project? Yeah.
So my daughter was a serious ballet dancer growing up. I was the quintessential dance mom, you know, working backstage at the Nutcracker. And she brought me a book, Final Bow for Yellowface by Phil Chan, during the summer of 2020. And, you know, that was a summer of a lot of turmoil in this country and self-examination. So I really was searching for another documentary project, and I thought this was a good subject to look at Asian representation in ballet, which is a you know, European art form. A lot of the classic ballets that we love, like the Nutcracker, you know, they have a little problem when it comes to racial presentation. So anyway, Phil Chan and Georgina Paskogan are young Asian dancers in New York City, and they launched this Final Bow for Yellowface movement to try to convince the elite ballet world to kind of take a look at how they represent Asians in their ballets and change. So I was doing research. It was literally, John, a year ago at the New York Public Library. I was doing research on the Nutcracker. So I was looking at the New York City Ballet's photographs of their premiere of the Nutcracker in 1954, which was done by the great George Balanchine. And so, you know, I'm looking at the pictures of the dancer doing the Chinese dance, and I was surprised, like, he was Chinese, Asian. And I thought, wow, this guy is really amazing. He must have been like the first Asian dancer in the New York City Ballet. And George Lee got incredible reviews for his performance in the Nutcracker in 1954. In fact, the guy who took over the role, a dancer by the name of Richard Thomas, said no one could do what George Lee could do when it came to his athleticism and artistry. And so I tried to find what happened to George Lee, and I could not find him with any major ballet company. So now the reporter in me kicks in, and I became, you know, obsessed with finding George Lee. And so literally this was November of last year. It took me about 6 weeks to track him down, but I found him in Las Vegas. And I called him up and I left a message. I said, you know, I'm trying to reach George Lee, the ballet dancer. And he called me back. He said, this is George Lee. And yes, I was a ballet dancer, but why are you looking for me? And so I asked him the $64,000 question, like, George, what happened to you? Why didn't you have this long, great career in ballet? He said, oh, well, they thought I was too short. I'm only 5'5", so I didn't get hired by the New York City Ballet, but I went and worked on Broadway. He said, Gene Kelly gave me a job in Flower Drum Song, and he danced on Broadway. But when George explained to me his background, his history, how he was born in Hong Kong, raised in Shanghai during the war years, he had to perform in nightclubs as a young child dancer as a way of earning money for himself and his mom. His mother was a Polish ballerina. His father was a Chinese acrobat, and the mother was raising him alone in Shanghai. So George grew up in Shanghai, fled in 1949, spent 2 years in a jungle refugee camp in the Philippines, lands in Manhattan in 1951, gets a scholarship to the School of American Ballet, which is and was the top ballet school in America, and then gets, you know, tapped by George Balanchine to originate the tea divertissement in the Nutcracker at the age of 18. He's a high school student. He had been in this country for 3 years. And it's just like such a phenomenal story. The reason it's called 10 Times Better is his white Polish mother told him, George, you're going to America. You're Chinese. You have to be 10 times better if you expect to succeed in America. And, that's stuck in his head, and that was a driving force in his life. And I think that message will resonate with a lot of immigrants, women, anyone who has had to prove themselves in a white culture.
Yeah, and if you're worried that you were a stage mom for your daughter, that doesn't hold a candle to what George's mom was. And having Polish in-laws, I know exactly what she was like. I can picture her exactly what she was like. But there was also a part and I hope I'm not giving anything away because this comes out next year, I guess it is.
February.
But there's a part in the thing where he's playing in Flower Drum Song, and he does a magnificent jump and twirl where he twirls in the air twice, almost 3 times before he lands. And he talks about there was one performance where he was a little tired and he touched the ground when he landed, and everybody else in the chorus says, "Oh, he's human."
Yeah, I love that. Don, what's interesting about George is when he was a child in Shanghai, his mother made him take ballet class with Russian adults. So he grew up in kind of the Russian system. No one does it better than the Russians when it comes to ballet. And so his training was actually very good. So he could do these double tours, they're called, without wobbling or wavering at all. So the one time he did, he said his friends just went wild backstage. He's human.
So I'm wondering about, where does this debut next year? Is it on PBS, or is it going to be doing the tours in film conferences?
So we're doing the film festival circuit. And we're going to premiere in February at the Dance on Camera Film Festival in New York City at Lincoln Center. So that is February 9th through 12th, I think. And the New York Public Library is also going to do a special event on February the 7th through a program called Works and Process about the making of the film. And George is coming out to New York for that. So he's in Las Vegas, but he'll be joining me. And we're going to talk about the research and finding him and collaborating on this film. So that's exciting.
Really exciting. What about Beyond Yellowface itself? I know it's a huge project, and I'm wondering, what could you tell us about what stage it's in?
Yeah, we're still in production, and we're continuing with filming. We've filmed for about 2 years now. And there is filming that we plan to do in March, where Phil Chan is going to be at Indiana University and restaging a classic ballet called La Bayadère, but taking it out of a Hindu temple and placing it in Hollywood during the Golden Age. So it's an experiment in kind of reimagining ballet. I mean, it's done all the time with Shakespeare, with other forms of theater. So this is, attempt to do the same with ballet.